She walked in for the divorce with a newborn. The billionaire ex sat there with his fiancée. The conference room smelled like old money and fresh betrayal. Janice Edwards stood in the doorway, a 3-week-old baby strapped to her chest, facing the man who had destroyed her life 18 months ago. Kevin Parker sat at the head of the table in his $3,000 suit, his new fiancée Helen positioned beside him like a trophy he had already won. And then Kevin saw the baby. His face went pale. His composure shattered. And the words that came out of his mouth would haunt him for years to come. "What is that?" he demanded, rising from his chair like the ground beneath him had cracked open. Janice did not flinch. She walked further into the room with the kind of calm that only comes from surviving the unsurvivable. "That is your daughter, Kevin. Her name is Margot. She is 3 weeks old. And before you ask for a DNA test, which I know you will because you have never trusted anyone in your entire life, I have already had one done. The results are in this folder." She slid a manila envelope across the conference table. It landed in front of him like a grenade. Helen's hand flew to her mouth. "Kevin," she whispered, "you told me there were no children. You promised me." Kevin did not answer her. He could not take his eyes off the baby carrier, off the tiny face peering out from the blankets, off the gray-green eyes that looked exactly like his own. "Why," he finally managed, his voice breaking in ways Janice had never heard before. "Why did you not tell me?" 18 months, Janice. 18 months. Janice smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Only truth. "When should I have told you, Kevin? Before or after I discovered you were sleeping with my best friend? Before or after you had me served with divorce papers while I was 12 weeks pregnant and too sick to leave my bathroom floor? Before or after your assistant told me you were unavailable for personal matters and that all communication should go through your legal team?" She paused, letting the words sink in like stones dropped into still water. "I tried to tell you. 17 times. I have the receipts. Every phone call. Every email. Every voicemail. You did not want to know, Kevin. You wanted me to disappear quietly so you could play house with her." She gestured toward Helen, who had gone completely still. "Well, congratulations. I disappeared. But I took something with me. And now you get to live with what you missed." The room fell silent. Kevin looked at the envelope, then at the baby, then at the woman he had once promised to love forever. And in that moment, watching his entire world collapse around him, only one thought managed to break through the chaos. What have I done? But to understand how we got here, to truly grasp the weight of this moment, we need to go back to where it all began. And trust me, you are not ready for what really happened. Because this is not just a story about a man who made a mistake. This is a story about a woman who refused to let that mistake define her. A story about what it really means to survive. And a story about whether some broken things can ever truly be put back together. Before I continue with this story that is about to change the way you think about betrayal and redemption, I need to speak directly to you for just a moment. If you have ever trusted someone completely only to discover they were not who you thought they were, this story is for you. If you have ever had to rebuild your entire life from ashes while everyone else moved on without you, this story is for you. If you have ever wondered whether people can truly change or whether second chances are just pretty lies we tell ourselves to feel better, this story is going to answer that question in ways you did not expect. Hit that like button right now if you have ever survived something that should have broken you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that survival is possible, that strength can come from devastation, that our worst moments do not have to be our final chapters. And subscribe to Mr. Dawson's Stories because what happens next is going to test everything you think you know about love, loss, and the messy work of becoming better than we were. Now let me take you back 3 years, to the night Janice Edwards met Kevin Parker for the first time. Because that is where this story really begins. The venue was called the Meridian, and it was the kind of place where billionaires threw parties to remind each other they were billionaires. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings that seemed to stretch into infinity. Wait staff moved through the crowd like ghosts in white jackets, carrying champagne that cost more per bottle than most people earned in a week. Janice was not a guest. She was the chef. Her catering company was small but growing, built on 14-hour days and a reputation for excellence that had spread through word of mouth among the Denver elite. Tonight was her biggest job yet. A corporate event for Parker Technologies, the tech empire that had made Kevin Parker one of the youngest billionaires in the country. She stood in the kitchen, checking temperatures and adjusting presentations, completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. The first time she saw him, he was standing by the service entrance, loosening his tie like it was choking him. Most guests stayed in the main ballroom, networking and performing the elaborate dance of the wealthy. But Kevin Parker had wandered into her territory, looking like a man who had gotten lost on purpose. You are not supposed to be back here, Janice said without looking up from the appetizer tray she was arranging. Guests stay in the ballroom. What if I am not a guest? She finally looked up, and something shifted in her chest. Not attraction, not yet. Something more like recognition. Like seeing a puzzle piece you did not know you were missing. Then what are you? She asked. Kevin smiled, and it was not the polished smile she would later see in magazine profiles. It was crooked, almost shy. The smile of someone who did not know he was being watched. Tonight I think I am just tired. And hiding. And very interested in whatever you are doing with those mushrooms. Janice raised an eyebrow. These are stuffed cremini with truffle oil and aged Parmesan. They cost about $40 each to make. And yet you are arranging them like they are pieces in an art exhibition. Because they are. Food is art. The presentation matters as much as the taste. Kevin moved closer, watching her hands work. Is that why you became a chef? For the art. I became a chef because my grandmother taught me that feeding people is how you love them. Janice paused, surprised at her own honesty with a stranger. Art came later. After I realized I was good at it. You are clearly good at it. These look incredible. You have not tasted them yet. I do not need to. I can tell from the care you are putting into the arrangement. People who care that much about the small details do not cut corners on the big ones. Janice finally stopped working and looked at him properly. He was handsome, obviously. The kind of handsome that opens doors and closes deals. But there was something underneath the expensive suit and perfect hair. Something tired. Something searching. You still have not told me who you are, she said. Kevin Parker. I believe I am technically the host of this event, though honestly I have been hiding from it for the last 20 minutes. Janice felt her face flush. You are Kevin Parker. The Kevin Parker. And you are in my kitchen telling me I arrange mushrooms like an artist. Your kitchen, Kevin repeated, amused. I thought I owned this venue tonight. You rented it. I am occupying it. There is a difference. He laughed, and the sound was genuine. Not the practiced laugh she would later learn he used in boardrooms and interviews. A real one. Fair enough. Then as a guest in your kitchen, can I ask for a taste of those $40 mushrooms? Janice hesitated. Then she picked up one of the perfectly arranged appetizers and handed it to him. Kevin took a bite. His eyes closed. And when they opened again, there was something new in them. Something that looked a lot like wonder. This is incredible, he said quietly. This might be the best thing I have ever eaten. Janice shrugged, but she was pleased despite herself. I told you. I am good at it. You are more than good. You are extraordinary. They stood there for a moment, the chaos of the event continuing beyond the kitchen doors, both of them aware that something had just started. Neither of them willing to name it yet. I should get back, Kevin finally said. They are probably looking for me. Probably. He turned to leave, then stopped. What is your name? Janice. Janice Edwards. Janice Edwards. He said her name like he was memorizing it. I am going to remember that. He left, and Janice went back to her mushrooms, telling herself it meant nothing. A billionaire had wandered into her kitchen. Made small talk. Complimented her food. It happened all the time. Except it did not happen all the time. And she knew it. 3 days later, a delivery arrived at her apartment. $200 worth of premium cremini mushrooms from a specialty supplier, along with a handwritten note. For the artist. Dinner tomorrow. If you are interested. Kevin. She was interested. Against her better judgment, against every warning bell in her head, she was interested. And that was the beginning of everything. Their first date was not at some exclusive restaurant where Kevin could flex his wealth. He had asked her to cook for him. At his penthouse, using his kitchen, which he admitted he had never actually used. You have a professional-grade kitchen and you have never cooked anything in it, Janice asked, staring at the pristine counters and untouched appliances. I have made coffee. Once. It did not go well. She laughed, and the sound surprised her. She did not laugh easily around new people. But Kevin made it feel natural. That night she made pasta from scratch while he sat on the counter and asked questions. Not the polished questions of someone trying to impress. Real questions. About her grandmother who taught her to cook. About the business she was building. About her dreams and her failures and the moments that had shaped her. And he answered her questions with the same honesty. About his father, a man who had built an empire but never learned to build a relationship. About the loneliness of having everything except the things that actually mattered. About his fear that he was becoming his father without realizing it. My dad died worth $3 billion, Kevin said quietly, watching Janice roll out the pasta dough. At his funeral, only 12 people came. 12 people for a man who could have bought anything he wanted. And I remember standing there thinking, if I keep going the way I am going, who will come to mine? Janice stopped rolling. That is a heavy thing to carry. I have been carrying it for 10 years. It is the reason I work so hard, actually. Not to make more money. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I work because if I stop, I have to think about whether any of it means anything. And does it mean anything? Kevin was quiet for a long moment. I am starting to think it only means something if you have someone to share it with. Their eyes met, and Janice felt the ground shift beneath her. This was dangerous territory. Billionaires did not fall for caterers. Fairy tales did not happen to women who grew up in apartments with water-damaged ceilings and mothers who worked double shifts just to keep the lights on. But Kevin was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he had been asking his whole life. They ate the pasta at his dining table, a table that sat 12 but had never hosted a dinner party. They talked until 3 in the morning. And when Kevin finally walked her to her car, he did not kiss her goodnight. He just held her hand and said, I have not felt this normal in years. Thank you for that. Janice drove home that night with her heart pounding and her mind racing. She told herself not to fall. She told herself this was temporary. She told herself men like Kevin Parker did not end up with women like her. She fell anyway. The next 6 months were the happiest of her life. Kevin showed up consistently, not with grand gestures and expensive gifts, but with presence. He came to her apartment instead of always insisting she come to his penthouse. He met her mother Gloria, who was suspicious at first but eventually admitted that he was not as bad as she expected. He learned to cook. Badly, but he learned. You are going to burn that, Janice said one evening, watching Kevin attempt to sauté vegetables. I am not going to burn it. I am caramelizing it. Caramelizing requires attention, Kevin. You cannot just leave it sitting in the pan. I am letting it develop flavor. You are letting it develop charcoal. He laughed and moved the pan off the heat, accepting defeat gracefully. Fine. You do it. But one day I am going to make you an entire meal without any help and you are going to be amazed. I am already amazed, Janice said quietly, and Kevin's expression softened. At what? At this. At you. At the fact that you are standing in my tiny kitchen trying to cook for me when you could be anywhere in the world doing anything you want. Kevin set down the spatula and crossed to her. He took her face in his hands, gentle and deliberate. This is what I want, he said. Right here. Right now. You are what I want, Janice. They got married 8 months later. A small ceremony, despite his PR team's protests. Just 50 people, the ones who actually mattered. Kevin wore a simple suit and cried when Janice walked down the aisle. She wore her grandmother's dress, altered to fit, and felt like she was carrying every woman in her family who had ever dared to dream of something better. Her mother gave a toast at the reception that Janice would never forget. My daughter does not trust easily, Gloria said, looking at Kevin with an expression that was equal parts warning and hope. She has learned that people disappoint you. That promises break. That love is not always enough. But she trusted you. She let you in. And Kevin, if you ever make her regret that trust, I will find you. I do not care how much money you have. I will find you and I will make you wish you had never been born. The room had laughed nervously. Kevin had stood up, walked to Gloria, and hugged her. I understand, he said. And I promise you, I will spend my life making sure she never regrets it. For 2 years, he kept that promise. They built a life together in his penthouse, which stopped feeling like a showpiece and started feeling like a home. Janice's catering company grew. Kevin's empire expanded. They talked about having children someday, maybe, when the timing was right. And then Helen arrived. Her full name was Helen Monroe, and she was perfect in all the ways that would eventually destroy everything. Tall and polished and accommodating, she was brought in as Kevin's new VP of communications after his previous one retired. Janice met her at a company event and immediately felt something cold settle in her stomach. It is so wonderful to finally meet you, Helen said, her handshake firm and her smile bright. Kevin talks about you all the time. You are the mysterious wife who stole his heart. Janice smiled back, but the word choice lingered. Mysterious. Like she was a puzzle Kevin had solved and put aside. Over the next few months, things began to shift. Small things at first. Kevin working later. Missing dinners. His phone always face down on the table. Conversations becoming shorter, more distracted. Janice told herself she was being paranoid. Kevin loved her. He had promised her forever. He would not throw that away for someone who worked for him. But her mother saw what Janice refused to see. "Baby," Gloria said during one of their weekly phone calls, "when a man stops fighting for your attention, it is because he is giving it to someone else. Mom, he is building a company. He is not having an affair." "I did not say affair. I said attention. There is a difference. And the difference is what kills a marriage. Not the big betrayals. The small abandonments. The daily choice to put someone else first." Janice dismissed her mother's concerns. But late at night, when Kevin came home smelling faintly of perfume he claimed was from a client meeting, she felt the doubt grow. She should have confronted him. Should have demanded answers. Should have fought for what was hers. Instead, she made excuses. Told herself stories. Chose blindness over the terrifying alternative of seeing clearly. And that blindness would cost her everything. The night Janice's world ended began like any other. It was a Thursday. March 14th. She had been feeling off for weeks, tired and nauseous in the mornings, and assumed it was stress. The catering company was expanding, taking on bigger clients, demanding more of her time. She was exhausted. That was all. But that afternoon, sitting in the doctor's office for what she thought was a routine checkup, she learned the truth. 12 weeks pregnant. Janice sat in her car in the parking lot for an hour, staring at the ultrasound image. A tiny flutter on the screen. A heartbeat. A life growing inside her that she had not planned and had not expected. Her first thought was Kevin. How happy he would be. How they had talked about children, someday, maybe. And now someday was here. She decided to surprise him. She would go to his office with dinner from his favorite restaurant. She would show him the ultrasound. They would cry together and plan together and remember why they had chosen each other. It was supposed to be perfect. But when Janice arrived at Parker Technologies headquarters, something was wrong. Kevin's assistant seemed nervous. Too nervous. "Mrs. Parker, you did not call ahead. Mr. Parker is in a late meeting. I wanted to surprise him." "It is fine. I will wait in his office." The assistant's face went pale. "Actually, I think he might be a while. Perhaps you could come back tomorrow." Janice felt the first crack form. The first splinter of doubt become something bigger. "I am his wife," she said quietly. "I will wait in his office." She walked past the assistant before anyone could stop her. Down the hallway with its abstract art and ambient lighting. Toward the corner office with glass walls that she had visited 100 times. The blinds were closed. They were never closed. Janice pushed open the door. And there was Kevin. Her husband. The man who had promised her forever. With Helen pressed against his desk, his hands in her hair, his mouth on her neck. The sound Janice made was not a scream. It was smaller than that. A gasp that carried 18 months of ignored warnings. A exhale that held the death of every dream she had built. Kevin spun around. His face went white. "Janice," he said. "This is not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. And they both knew it. What happened next would haunt Janice for years. Not the discovery. Not the betrayal. But Kevin's reaction. Instead of apologizing, instead of falling to his knees and begging forgiveness, he went on the offensive. "You should not have come here without calling," he said, his voice cold in a way she had never heard before. "This is exactly why we have problems. You do not respect boundaries." Janice stared at him. At this stranger wearing her husband's face. At the man who was trying to make his betrayal her fault. She said nothing. There was nothing to say. She simply turned around and walked out. Behind her, she heard Helen's voice, high and panicked. "Kevin, should I go?" And Kevin's response, distracted and irritated. "Just give me a minute." Janice drove home in a fog. She packed a bag. She sat on the bed they had shared and stared at the ultrasound image still in her purse. 12 weeks pregnant. With the child of a man who had just shattered every promise he ever made. The divorce papers arrived 48 hours later. Kevin had moved fast. His legal team was efficient and ruthless, presenting Janice with documents that reduced their marriage to a series of financial transactions. The prenup she had signed, believing they would never need it, protected his assets completely. She would receive a settlement, generous by normal standards, but nothing compared to what he was worth. There was no mention of reconciliation. No request to talk. No acknowledgement that he had done anything wrong. He wanted her gone. Quickly and cleanly. So he could move on to his new life with Helen. Janice tried to tell him about the pregnancy. The first call went to voicemail. Mr. Parker is unavailable. The second call was answered by his assistant. Please direct all personal matters to legal counsel. The third call was answered by a lawyer. Mrs. Parker, we strongly advise you to cease direct communication. All matters pertaining to the divorce should go through proper legal channels. The fourth call was blocked entirely. She sent emails. They bounced back. She went to his office. Security informed her she was no longer permitted in the building. Kevin Parker had erased her from his life with the same efficiency he used to acquire companies. And no matter how hard she tried, she could not reach him. Her mother found her crying on the bathroom floor on the third day. Baby, Gloria said, kneeling down beside her. Baby, what is happening? I am pregnant, Janice whispered. And he does not know. He will not let me tell him. Gloria's face hardened into something fierce. Then he does not deserve to know. Mom, he is the father. He is a sperm donor, Gloria corrected. Being a father requires showing up. It requires caring. And that man has made it very clear he does not care about you or anything you might be carrying. If he wanted to know, he would have asked. He would have listened. He would have been reachable. But he should know. Should he? Gloria's voice was gentle but firm. Baby, think about what he has done. He cheated on you. He blamed you for catching him. He had you served with divorce papers before you could even process the betrayal. And now he has blocked every attempt you have made to communicate. Does that sound like a man who deserves to know he is going to be a father? Or does that sound like a man who would use that information against you? Janice did not have an answer. She only had tears. The next few months were the hardest of her life. She moved out of the penthouse and into a studio apartment. The settlement money was enough to survive on, but barely. Her catering company was suffering because she could barely get through a day without vomiting from morning sickness and crying from heartbreak. Her mother moved in with her for the worst weeks. Gloria slept on the couch and held Janice's hair back when she was sick and reminded her, every single day, that she was strong enough to survive this. You are an Edwards woman, Gloria said during one particularly dark night. Edwards women do not break. We bend. We adapt. We keep going. You have a baby growing inside you who needs you to be strong. So be strong. Not for him. For her. How do you know it is a girl? Janice asked weakly. Mother's intuition, Gloria replied. And Edwards women always know. She was right. The next ultrasound confirmed it. A girl. Janice looked at the image of her daughter and made a choice. She would not spend another minute crying over Kevin Parker. She would not waste another ounce of energy trying to reach a man who did not want to be reached. She would build a life for herself and her baby. She would survive. And she did. The pregnancy was difficult. Complications arose. Janice spent 2 weeks on bed rest in her third trimester, terrified and alone except for her mother's daily visits. But she made it through. The birth was harder. 37 hours of labor that ended in an emergency cesarean when the baby's heart rate dropped. Janice was awake for all of it, feeling the pressure but not the pain, watching the doctors work with the same focused intensity she used when catering an important event. And then there was crying. A new voice in the world. A life that had not existed a year ago and now was everything. They placed Margot on Janice's chest, this tiny red-faced creature with a surprising amount of dark hair and her father's gray-green eyes. And Janice felt something shift. Something fundamental. I am never going to let anyone hurt you, she whispered to her daughter. I am going to give you everything I never had. A home. Stability. A mother who puts you first. Always. Margot opened her eyes and looked up at Janice like she understood. Like she was saying, I know. I trust you. And Janice kept that promise. The first 6 months of single motherhood were a blur of sleepless nights and impossible choices. Janice learned to function on 3 hours of sleep. She learned to breastfeed while answering emails. She learned that babies do not care about your schedule or your deadlines or your desperate need for 5 minutes of silence. But she also learned that she was stronger than she had ever imagined. Her catering company, which she had expected to fail, actually grew. Clients loved the story of the single mother who refused to quit. Word spread. Bookings increased. By the time Margot was 3 months old, Janice had hired 2 assistants and was turning away work. She was not just surviving. She was thriving. And then the letter arrived. It came from Kevin's lawyers, not from Kevin himself. Formal language requesting her presence at a final divorce proceeding. All matters to be resolved. All ties to be severed. Kevin wanted to close this chapter permanently so he could move forward with his life. His engagement to Helen had been announced 2 weeks earlier. Janice had seen it in the business section of the newspaper, a small mention that billionaire Kevin Parker was engaged to his VP of communications. The photo showed them smiling, polished, perfect. Like the last 18 months had never happened. Like Janice had never existed at all. She stared at the legal letter for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and called her mother. "He wants to finalize the divorce," she said. "He is getting married to her." "Good," Gloria replied. "Let him. Sign the papers. End this chapter. There is something else. He still does not know about Margot." Silence on the other end of the line. Then Gloria spoke carefully. "What are you thinking?" "I am thinking that before I sign those papers, before I disappear from his life completely, he should know what he is giving up. Not for him. For Margot. So that someday, when she asks about her father, I can tell her I tried. That I gave him the chance to know her. And that he chose to walk away. That is a big decision, baby. I know. But it is the right one." And that was how Janice found herself, 3 weeks after Margot was born, walking into a law office with a baby strapped to her chest and 18 months of evidence in her bag. She was not there for revenge. She was there for closure. But what happened next would change everything. Now, before I continue with what happens when Janice steps into that conference room and confronts Kevin with the truth he never wanted to face, I need to pause and speak directly to you. We have covered a lot of ground together. We have watched Janice fall in love with a man who seemed like everything she ever wanted. We have watched that love get betrayed in the worst possible way. We have watched her survive pregnancy alone, give birth alone, and build a new life from the ashes of the old one. If any part of her story resonates with you, if you have ever been abandoned by someone who was supposed to love you, if you have ever had to become someone new because the old version of you could not survive what happened, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. Not for me. For every person watching this video who needs to know they are not alone. Drop a comment below and tell me your story. Have you ever had to rebuild from nothing? Have you ever faced someone who hurt you and demanded they see what they almost destroyed? I read every single comment, and your stories matter. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. What happens next in this story is going to test everything we think we know about forgiveness, second chances, and whether people can truly change. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because trust me, you do not want to miss what is about to happen when Janice walks through that door. Now let us go back to that conference room, where the most important confrontation of Janice's life is about to unfold. The conference room at Morrison & Associates was designed to intimidate. 16-foot ceilings. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Denver skyline. A mahogany table long enough to seat 20. Everything about the space screamed wealth and power and the quiet confidence of people who had never been told no. Janice walked in anyway. She had chosen her outfit carefully that morning. Not the designer clothes she used to wear when she was Mrs. Kevin Parker. Something simpler. A navy blazer she had bought on sale. Comfortable shoes because her body was still recovering from childbirth. Her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail because she did not have time for anything else. She looked like exactly what she was. A working mother who had survived the unsurvivable. Kevin sat at the head of the table, and the sight of him still hit her somewhere deep. He had not changed. Same perfect hair. Same expensive suit. Same posture of a man who owned every room he entered. Helen sat beside him, and that was harder to look at. The diamond on her finger caught the light like it was showing off. Her hand rested on Kevin's arm in a gesture that was probably meant to be supportive but read as possessive. The lawyers flanked both sides. 3 for Kevin. 1 for Janice. The imbalance was intentional. And then Kevin saw the baby carrier. His face went through a transformation that Janice would remember for the rest of her life. Confusion first. Then recognition. Then something that looked almost like fear. "Janice," he said, rising from his chair. "What is that?" She did not answer immediately. She walked to the opposite end of the table, putting the maximum distance between them, and sat down with the careful movements of a woman who knew that babies wake easily. This is your daughter, she said calmly. Her name is Margot. She is 3 weeks old. The silence that followed was deafening. Helen's hand dropped from Kevin's arm. Her face went pale beneath her perfect makeup. Kevin, she said, her voice tight. You told me there were no children. You specifically told me there were no children. Kevin did not respond to her. He could not take his eyes off the baby carrier. Why did you not tell me, he demanded. His voice cracked on the last word. 18 months, Janice. 18 months. Janice pulled a manila envelope from her bag and slid it across the table. Before we continue this conversation, she said, here is the DNA test you are undoubtedly going to request. I had it done privately. She is yours. Not that there was ever any doubt on my end, but I know how you operate. You will want proof before you believe anything. Kevin did not touch the envelope. He stared at it like it might explode. When, he finally managed. When did you find out? March 14th. The night I came to your office to surprise you with dinner. I had just left the doctor. I was 12 weeks pregnant. I was going to tell you that night. She paused, letting the implication sink in. But you were busy. With her. Helen made a small sound. Kevin's face went gray. I tried to tell you, Janice continued. Her voice was steady, almost conversational. After that night. After you had me served with divorce papers while I was sick on my bathroom floor. After you made it clear you wanted me gone. She pulled out a folder and opened it on the table. Here is the documentation. 17 attempts to contact you over the following 9 months. Phone calls that went to voicemail or were answered by your assistant who told me to direct all personal matters to legal counsel. Emails that bounced back. One in-person visit to your office where security informed me I was no longer permitted in the building. She spread the papers out like evidence in a trial. Which they were. You did not want to know, Kevin. You wanted me to disappear quietly so you could play house with her. Well, congratulations. I disappeared. But I took something with me. Kevin finally moved. He walked around the table, not toward Janice, but toward the baby carrier. He stopped a few feet away, like he was afraid to get closer. Can I see her? He asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. Janice considered saying no. She had every right to say no. But this moment was not about her. It was about Margot. About being able to tell her daughter someday that she had given her father every chance. She adjusted the carrier so Kevin could see. Margot was awake, her gray-green eyes looking up at the world with the unfocused curiosity of a newborn. She had dark hair like both of her parents. A small nose. Tiny fingers that curled and uncurled as she moved. She has my eyes, Kevin breathed. Yes. She does. She is beautiful. Yes. She is. Kevin reached out like he wanted to touch her, then stopped himself. Can I hold her? No. The word was not cruel. It was simply a boundary. You do not get to hold her, Janice said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That depends entirely on what happens next. Kevin looked at her, and for the first time since she had known him, he looked lost. What do you want? He asked. Whatever you want. Money. More than the settlement. I will give you whatever you want. Janice laughed, and there was no humor in it. You still do not understand. I do not want your money, Kevin. I have never wanted your money. I wanted you. The real you. The man who ate burned pancakes at 2 in the morning. The man who cried at our wedding. The man who promised my mother he would never make me regret trusting him. She stood up, and her voice hardened. But that man does not exist. Maybe he never did. Maybe he was just a performance you put on until you got bored and found someone easier. That is not true, Kevin said. Janice, that is not true. Then explain it to me. Explain how you went from promising me forever to sleeping with my replacement in 3 months. Explain how you went from I love you to having me served with divorce papers without a single conversation. Explain how you blocked every attempt I made to tell you that you were going to be a father. Kevin opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no explanation. There was none. Helen stood up abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor with a sound like a scream. I need to go, she said. Her voice was shaking. Kevin, I cannot do this right now. I need to think. Helen, wait. No. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger and set it on the table. I asked you directly if there was anything I needed to know before I said yes. You told me there was nothing. You told me your marriage was over long before it ended. You told me I was not the cause. You were not, Kevin insisted. Janice and I had problems before you ever. She was pregnant. Helen's voice cracked. She was pregnant and trying to tell you and you blocked her calls. What kind of man does that? What kind of man am I marrying? She did not wait for an answer. She walked out of the conference room without looking back. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow felt enormous. The lawyers shifted uncomfortably. One of Kevin's attorneys cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a brief recess, he suggested. To allow everyone to collect themselves. No, Janice said. We finish this now. I have a newborn at home and a business to run. I do not have time for your client's emotional breakdown. She looked at Kevin, who had sunk into a chair like his legs could not hold him anymore. Here is what is going to happen, she said. We are going to finalize this divorce today. You are going to sign those papers. And then you are going to have a choice to make. What choice? Kevin asked dully. Whether you want to be part of your daughter's life. The words hung in the air. Kevin looked up at her with something that might have been hope. You would let me. I did not say that. I said you have a choice to make. Wanting is not the same as earning. And Kevin, you have a lot of earning to do. I will do whatever it takes. Will you? Because right now, sitting in this room, you are saying all the right things. But you have said all the right things before. At our wedding. During our marriage. And it did not mean anything when you were choosing her over me. This is different. Is it? Because from where I am standing, you are a man who chose convenience over commitment. Who chose the woman who made your life easier over the woman who challenged you to be better. Why should I believe you would treat your daughter any differently? Kevin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Because you are right. About everything. I was a coward. I was selfish. I convinced myself that our problems were your fault because that was easier than looking at myself. And when Helen came along, she did not push me. She did not question me. She let me stay exactly as I was. He met Janice's eyes. You made me want to be better. And I was terrified of that. So I ran. Pretty words, Janice said. But I have heard your pretty words before. I know. And I know sorry does not begin to cover what I did. But Janice, I am not asking for your forgiveness. I do not deserve that. I am just asking for the chance to know my daughter. To be there for her. To prove, through years if that is what it takes, that I can be the father she deserves. Janice studied him. Looking for cracks in the conviction. For the polished deflection she had come to recognize. But all she saw was a man who looked like he had just watched his entire life collapse and was only now realizing it was his own fault. We sign the papers today, she said finally. The divorce is finalized. Whatever happens after that starts from a clean slate. No marriage holding things hostage. No history clouding the future. Just two people trying to figure out how to raise a child together. Thank you, Kevin breathed. Do not thank me yet. I have conditions. Anything. Janice pulled out another document from her bag. A custody arrangement she had drafted with her lawyer. Supervised visits only for the first 6 months. You do not get to be alone with her until I am confident you are not going to disappear when fatherhood gets boring. Agreed. Weekly phone calls. Not when it is convenient for you. Scheduled. Consistent. You miss one without a real emergency, and we start over. Agreed. No extravagant gifts. You do not get to buy her love. You have to earn it the way everyone else does. By showing up. Agreed. And Kevin. She leaned forward, and her voice dropped to something dangerous. If you let her down the way you let me down, if you make her feel for one moment that she is not your priority, you will never see her again. I do not care how many lawyers you have. I do not care how much money you can throw at the problem. You will not get another chance. This is it. The only one. Kevin nodded slowly. I understand. I hope you do. Because she is the only thing that matters now. Not your guilt. Not your redemption. Not whatever is happening between you and Helen. Margot is the only priority. Say it. Margot is the only priority, Kevin repeated. Mean it. I mean it. Janice held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. The lawyers will handle the details. You can contact mine when you are ready to schedule the first visit. She stood up and gathered her things. Margot had fallen asleep during the conversation, blissfully unaware that her entire future had just been negotiated over her head. Janice, Kevin said as she reached the door. Can you at least tell me what she is like? Margot. What is she like? Janice paused. She thought about the last 3 weeks. The sleepless nights. The tiny fingers gripping hers. The weight of this small person who depended on her completely. She is stubborn, she said finally. She refuses to sleep when she is supposed to. She gets angry at things that do not go her way. Kevin almost smiled. Sounds like both of us. She also has this way of looking at you like she knows exactly who you are. Like she can see through everything you are pretending to be. Janice opened the door. You should know that about her before you meet her properly. She will not be impressed by your money or your name or your charm. She will only be impressed by whether you show up. I will show up, Kevin said. I promise. We will see. And Janice walked out, her daughter sleeping against her chest, into a future that was uncertain but entirely her own. The drive home felt longer than usual. Janice kept replaying the confrontation in her mind. Kevin's face when he saw Margot. Helen walking out. The promises made across a conference table. She did not know if she had made the right choice. Maybe she should have kept Kevin out of their lives completely. Maybe opening this door would only lead to more pain. But she thought about Margot growing up. Asking about her father. Wanting to know why he was not there. I gave him a chance, Janice would be able to say. I gave him every chance. And then we will see what he did with it. Her mother was waiting when she got home. Gloria took one look at her daughter's face and opened her arms. How did it go? Gloria asked. He knows. He met her. He says he wants to be involved. And do you believe him? Janice considered the question carefully. I believe he wants to believe he will follow through. Whether he actually does is another matter. What happens now? Now we wait. He has to prove himself. Supervised visits. Consistency. Showing up even when it is not convenient. Gloria nodded slowly. And if he does not? Then Margot grows up knowing I gave him the chance and he chose not to take it. That is not on me. That is on him. They sat together in the small living room while Margot slept in her carrier. The silence was comfortable. The kind of silence that exists between people who have survived things together. I am proud of you, Gloria said finally. You walked in there with your head high. You did not let him see you broken. You set terms instead of begging for scraps. I did not feel strong, Janice admitted. I felt terrified. That is what strength is, baby. Feeling terrified and doing it anyway. The cowards are the ones who run from their fear. You walked straight into yours. Janice leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. For a moment, she let herself be someone's daughter instead of someone's mother. Let herself be held instead of doing the holding. Do you think he can change? She asked quietly. I think people can change if they want it badly enough. The question is whether he wants it badly enough. Whether he is willing to do the work even when no one is watching. Whether he can put someone else first for the first time in his life. Gloria stroked Janice's hair. But baby, that is not your problem to solve. You gave him the chance. What he does with it is up to him. Your job now is to raise that beautiful girl and build your life and be happy. His redemption is not your responsibility. The word settled over Janice like a blanket. Her mother was right. She had done what she could. The rest was out of her hands. The first supervised visit happened 2 weeks later. Janice chose a park near her apartment. Neutral territory. Public space. Witnesses everywhere in case Kevin decided to do something stupid, though she did not really think he would. He arrived 10 minutes early. She watched him from across the playground, pacing near a bench, checking his phone repeatedly. He was nervous. More nervous than she had ever seen him in boardrooms or at galas or facing down competitors worth billions. When he spotted them approaching, his whole face transformed. The polished billionaire disappeared. In his place was something more vulnerable. Something almost human. Hi, he said when they reached him. Thank you for doing this. Thank her, Janice replied, gesturing to Margot. She is the reason we are here. Kevin looked at his daughter, now 5 weeks old and slightly more alert than she had been at the law office. Margot was awake in her carrier, her gray-green eyes taking in the world with unfocused curiosity. Hi Margot, Kevin said softly. I am your dad. I know that probably does not mean anything to you right now. But I am going to make sure it means something eventually. Janice felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not trust. But perhaps the faintest possibility of something. You can hold her, she said. If you want. Kevin looked at her with surprise. I thought you said. I said not at the law office. This is different. This is the first visit. She should start getting used to you. She lifted Margot from the carrier and showed Kevin how to support her head, how to hold her close without squeezing too tight. His movements were awkward and uncertain, but he listened carefully and followed every instruction. She is so small, he whispered, looking down at the tiny person in his arms. I did not realize babies were this small. She will get bigger. Faster than you think. Kevin held his daughter for 10 minutes that first visit. He did not try to extend the time. He did not push for more than Janice was willing to give. He simply held her and looked at her and said her name like he was trying to memorize it. When he handed her back, there were tears in his eyes. Thank you, he said. For giving me this chance. I know I do not deserve it. You are right. You do not. But she deserves a father who shows up. So show up. I will. The weeks turned into months, and Kevin kept his word. He came to Denver twice a month for supervised visits. Never late. Never rescheduled. Even when his company was in crisis mode, even when deals worth billions hung in the balance, he showed up. He called 3 times a week. Scheduled calls that he never missed. At first the calls were awkward. What do you say to a baby who cannot understand you? But he figured it out. He read her stories. He sang songs badly. He narrated his day like she was his closest confidant. I am in a meeting right now, he would whisper into the phone. Very boring people talking about very boring things. You would hate it. Your mom would hate it too. She always hated these meetings. Janice would listen from the other room, pretending not to hear. Pretending not to notice how his voice changed when he talked to their daughter. How it softened. How it became something she had not heard since the early days of their relationship. 3 months in, Kevin made an announcement that changed everything. They were at the park again. Margot was 3 months old now and had started smiling. Real smiles, not the gas grimaces of a newborn. She was smiling at Kevin, who was making ridiculous faces to entertain her. I have been thinking, Kevin said without looking up from his daughter. About the future. What about it? I want to be closer. To her. To both of you. The flying back and forth, it is not sustainable if I want to be a real presence in her life. Janice felt her heart rate increase. What are you suggesting? I am thinking about opening a Denver office. Relocating here permanently. Not to force my way into your life, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Just to be available. To show up not just for scheduled visits but for the unexpected things. The first steps. The first words. The doctor appointments and the sleepless nights and all the things I have already missed. Kevin, that is a huge decision. I know. But she is worth it. He finally looked at Janice. You were right, what you said at the law office. I chose convenience over commitment. I chose the easier path. I am not going to do that again. If being her father means restructuring my entire life, then that is what I will do. Janice studied him. Looking for the catch. The ulterior motive. The old Kevin hiding behind the new words. She did not find it. Okay, she said slowly. Okay. Move here. Be close to her. But Kevin. I know. Actions, not words. Actions, not words, she confirmed. You have been doing well for 3 months. That is a start. But fatherhood is not a quarter. It is a lifetime. Prove you can sustain it. I will. And what about Helen? The question hung in the air. They had not discussed Helen since the law office. Janice had seen mentions in the gossip columns. Engagement called off. Billionaire's fiancé walks away. But she did not know the details. Kevin's face tightened. She ended things. That day. After she left the conference room, she sent me a message. 2 sentences. I deserve better than someone who lies. Do not contact me. Janice felt a complicated mix of emotions. Satisfaction, maybe. Sympathy for Helen, who had been used by Kevin just as Janice had been, even if she had been complicit in the betrayal. I am sorry, Janice said, and was surprised to find she meant it. I am not. Kevin shook his head. Not about losing her. I am sorry I ever hurt you to be with her. I am sorry I convinced myself she was what I wanted when what I really wanted was to avoid becoming a better person. He looked down at Margot, who had fallen asleep in his arms. She makes me want to be better. Not because she expects anything. She is too young to expect anything. But because she deserves a father she can be proud of. And I was not that person. Not yet. Maybe not ever, if I had kept going the way I was going. You are doing better, Janice admitted. It felt like a risk to say it. Better is not enough. Better is the minimum. I want to be good. I want to be someone she looks at and thinks, that is my dad, and not be embarrassed by it. Janice was quiet for a moment. Then she made a decision. I will help you find a house, she said. Something in a good school district. Close enough that visits do not require planning, but not so close that we are on top of each other. Really? This is not forgiveness, she clarified. This is practical. If you are going to be part of her life, it is easier if you are nearby. That is all. Thank you. For this. For everything. I know I keep saying that but. Then stop saying it and keep showing it. Words are easy. Time is what matters. Kevin moved to Denver 6 weeks later. He bought a house in Wash Park. 4 bedrooms, which was excessive for a single man, but he said he wanted space for Margot to grow into. A backyard with a swing set already installed. A kitchen he actually intended to use, though Janice had doubts about his cooking abilities surviving the move. The first time Janice brought Margot to his new house, something felt different. Maybe it was the framed photos already on the walls. Margot at 1 week old. Margot at 1 month. Pictures from every visit, printed and displayed like the most important art he had ever owned. Maybe it was the nursery he had set up. Carefully researched. Age appropriate. Painted a soft yellow because he was not sure if she would like pink or blue when she was older and wanted her to have options. Maybe it was the way he walked her through the house, room by room, explaining what he envisioned. This is the living room. I thought we could do movie nights here when she is older. Family movie nights. If you want to come. You do not have to come. But the invitation is open. Kevin. I know. I am rambling. I am nervous. Why are you nervous? Because I want you to like it. I want you to think this is a place she could feel safe. A place that feels like hers, not just mine. Janice looked around at the house this billionaire had built for a daughter he had only known for 4 months. At the effort he had put into making it feel like a home instead of a showpiece. At the evidence everywhere that he was trying. It is beautiful, she said. She is going to love it. Kevin's face lit up. Really? Really? And for the first time since the law office, Janice felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But the absence of active hostility. The beginning of something that might eventually become peace. The months continued to pass. Margot hit milestones with the unpredictable rhythm of all babies. Her first real laugh, prompted by Kevin making a ridiculous noise that no adult should ever make in public. Her first rollover, achieved during a visit to Kevin's house while Janice was getting coffee from the kitchen. Her first word, which was not mama or dada but more, because she had inherited stubbornness from both her parents. Kevin was there for all of it. Present for the expected moments and the unexpected ones. He adjusted his schedule around Margot's needs instead of expecting her to adjust to his. He learned to change diapers competently. He figured out which songs made her sleep and which made her scream. He became, slowly and imperfectly, a father. And Janice watched. She watched him fail sometimes. Show up stressed from work and struggle to be present. Lose patience when Margot would not stop crying. Once, he arrived 15 minutes late to a visit because a meeting ran over, and Janice saw the genuine panic in his eyes when he thought she might end everything over it. She did not end everything. But she made it clear that lateness was not acceptable. 15 minutes today, she said calmly. 20 minutes next time. An hour the time after that. That is how it starts. That is how you become your father. Showing up when it is convenient. Absent when it is not. Kevin looked like she had slapped him. You are right, he said quietly. I am sorry. It will not happen again. It did not happen again. A year after the law office confrontation, they stood in Kevin's backyard at Margot's first birthday party. The guest list was small. Janice's mother Gloria, who had graduated from hostile glares to grudging acknowledgement. A few of Janice's friends from her catering business. And Kevin, who had spent weeks planning this party with more attention than he had ever given a corporate acquisition. She is having fun, Kevin said, watching Margot smash her fists into the cake Janice had made. She is destroying that cake, Janice corrected. But yes. She is enjoying the destruction. She has your determination. She has your stubbornness. Kevin laughed, and the sound was genuine. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching their daughter paint herself purple with frosting. Can I ask you something, Kevin said. Depends on the question. Are you happy? The question caught Janice off guard. They had developed an effective co-parenting relationship over the past year. Civil, coordinated. Almost friendly. But they did not usually discuss feelings. I am content, she said carefully. That is not what I asked. I know what you asked. She watched Margot attempt to eat frosting with both hands simultaneously. I spent 18 months surviving. Then I spent a year rebuilding. Happiness was not really on the agenda. And now? Now I do not know. I have a daughter who is healthy and thriving. A business that is growing. A life that I built myself without anyone's help. Is that happiness? I am not sure. But it is mine. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. I want you to be happy, he finally said. Not content. Happy. Whatever that looks like for you. Janice turned to look at him properly. Why? Because I took that from you. When I chose wrong. When I broke every promise I ever made. I took your happiness and I do not know if you have gotten it back. And I need you to know that even though I cannot undo what I did, I want you to have it again. Happiness. Joy. Whatever it is that I stole. You did not steal it, Janice said slowly. You just made me realize I was looking for it in the wrong place. What do you mean? I thought happiness came from being loved by the right person. From being chosen. From building a life with someone who would never let you down. And when you let me down, I thought I had lost my chance at it forever. She looked back at Margot, who was now wearing more cake than she had eaten. But this past year, I learned something. Happiness is not something someone gives you. It is something you build for yourself. And no one can take it away unless you let them. Kevin absorbed this in silence. When he spoke again, his voice was different. More vulnerable than she was used to hearing. I have not been happy in years, he admitted. Not really. I thought I was, when I was with Helen. When I was building the company. When I was achieving all the things I thought I was supposed to achieve. But it was all empty. I was just running from the emptiness, pretending motion was the same as meaning. What changed? He gestured toward their daughter. She changed. Being her father. Showing up for her. It is the first thing I have ever done that actually feels like it matters. Not because it makes me money or gives me power. Because she needs me. And I need her. Janice felt something shift in her chest. Something she was not ready to name. You have been a good father this year, she said. I did not think I would ever say that. But you have. Thank you. That means more than you know. Do not thank me. Thank her. She is the one who gave you the chance to become someone worth believing in. Margot chose that moment to throw a handful of cake directly at Kevin's face. It landed on his cheek with a wet splat. And she is also the one who just assaulted you with frosting, Janice added, barely suppressing a laugh. Kevin wiped the cake from his face, grinning despite himself. Worth it, he said. Completely worth it. Janice watched him pick up their daughter, heedless of the mess she was making of his clothes. Watched Margot laugh and grab his face with frosting-covered hands. Watched the man who had once destroyed her become someone almost unrecognizable. And for the first time in 2 years, she let herself wonder if maybe there was more to their story than she had allowed herself to believe. Before I continue with what happens next in this journey of broken trust and careful rebuilding, I need to speak directly to you one more time. We have come so far together. We have watched Janice survive the unthinkable. We have seen Kevin go from a man who ran from himself to someone fighting every day to become worthy of his daughter. And now we are approaching the most important question of all. Can broken things really be fixed? Not papered over. Not ignored. Actually fixed. If you believe in second chances, even hard-earned ones, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Join this community of people who believe that our past does not have to be our prison. That change is possible. That love, real love, is worth the risk. Drop a comment telling me what you think should happen next. Should Janice open her heart again? Has Kevin truly changed? Your voice matters in this conversation. Share this video with someone navigating their own impossible situation. Someone who needs to hear that survival is possible. That transformation is possible. That the story is not over until we decide it is. Now let us find out how this story ends. The second year was different from the first. The hostility had faded. The constant vigilance had relaxed. Janice found herself looking forward to Kevin's visits instead of dreading them. Found herself laughing at his jokes instead of analyzing them for hidden meaning. Found herself seeing the man he was becoming instead of the man he had been. It scared her. She mentioned it to her mother during one of their weekly phone calls. "I do not know what is happening," Janice admitted. "He is different. Or maybe I am different. Or maybe we are both different. But something has changed." Gloria was quiet for a moment. "Changed how?" "I do not hate him anymore. I tried to keep hating him. It was safer that way. But he just keeps showing up. Keeps being present. Keeps putting Margot first. And I cannot maintain hatred in the face of genuine transformation." "Baby," Gloria said carefully, "it sounds like you might be falling for him again." "No." Janice's response was immediate. "That is not what this is. I cannot fall for him again. He destroyed me." "He destroyed the old you," Gloria corrected. "The new you is stronger. The new you knows her worth. Maybe that is why it feels different. You are not the same woman who fell in love with him the first time." Janice was quiet for a long moment. "What if he hurts me again? What if he does not? I cannot survive another heartbreak like that." "You survived the first one. You built an empire from the ashes. You raised a beautiful daughter alone. Baby, you are strong enough to survive anything. The question is whether you are brave enough to risk not having to." The words stayed with Janice for weeks. She turned them over in her mind during sleepless nights. Examined them from every angle. Tried to find the flaw in the logic. But her mother was right. She was different now. Stronger. More certain of herself. The woman Kevin had married would have forgiven him too easily, too quickly, desperate to hold on to the fairy tale. This version of Janice did not need fairy tales. She needed truth. And the truth was that Kevin had changed. Not overnight. Not dramatically. But consistently, over 2 years of showing up. Of choosing their daughter over his convenience. Of doing the hard work of becoming someone worth trusting. The question was whether she was brave enough to let him in again. The conversation happened on a Tuesday evening. Margot was 2 years old now, opinionated and fearless in the way toddlers are. Kevin was at Janice's house for dinner, something that had become routine over the past few months. He cooked while Janice supervised Margot, and afterward they sat together watching their daughter destroy her play area with enthusiastic chaos. "Can I ask you something?" Kevin said quietly. "Not as Margot's mother. Just as you. Depends on the question. Are you happy now? Not content. Happy." It was the same question he had asked at Margot's first birthday. But this time, Janice's answer was different. "Sometimes," she admitted. "When Margot laughs at something ridiculous. When a big catering job goes perfectly. When I look at my life and realize I built all of it myself, from nothing. And other times I feel lonely. Not alone. There is a difference. I have Margot. I have my mom. I have friends and work and purpose. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if this is all there is. If I will spend the rest of my life being content instead of joyful." Kevin was quiet for a moment. "I feel the same way," he said. "Margot is everything to me. Being her father is the best thing I have ever done. But there is something missing. Someone missing." Janice felt her heart rate increase. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I love you." He held up his hand before she could respond. "Not the way I loved you before. That was possession. That was fear disguised as devotion. This is different." "How is it different?" "Because I do not need you to be happy. I have learned to be happy on my own. To find meaning in fatherhood and growth and becoming someone I am not ashamed of. I am not coming to you empty, hoping you will fill me. I am coming to you whole, hoping you will let me be part of your wholeness." Janice felt tears threatening. "Kevin. Let me finish. Please. I have been waiting 2 years to say this, and if I do not say it now I never will." He turned to face her fully. "I was a coward. I was selfish. I chose the wrong woman because I was afraid of becoming the right man. And by the time I realized what I had lost, it was too late to undo it. I will never get back the pregnancy I missed. The birth I was not there for. The first year of her life that I only saw in photographs. His voice cracked. But I can be here now. For both of you. Not as a consolation prize or a last resort. As someone who has done the work. Who keeps doing the work. Who will never stop doing the work because you both deserve someone who shows up and stays. What are you asking for? A chance. Not to go backward. Forward. To build something new between us. Something that accounts for everything that happened, everything that broke, everything we have both learned. Something real, not pretend. Janice was quiet for so long that Kevin started to look nervous. I am scared, she finally admitted. I know. I am scared that if I let you in again, you will hurt me again. That I will wake up one day and discover this was all a performance. I know. I am scared of trusting you with my heart when you shattered it so completely the first time. I know. Kevin reached across the space between them and took her hand. I am scared too. Of what? Of messing this up. Of not being worthy of the chance you might give me. Of hurting you again, even accidentally. Every day I wake up terrified that I will do something wrong and lose both of you forever. Then why are you asking for this? Because the fear of losing you is smaller than the regret of never trying. Because Margot deserves to see what love looks like when both people choose it every day. Because I have spent 2 years becoming someone worthy of you, and I do not want to waste that by staying silent. Janice looked at their joined hands. At the man sitting across from her who had spent 2 years proving he could change. At the possibility of something she had convinced herself was impossible. I cannot promise you anything, she said slowly. I am not asking for promises. Then what are you asking for? Time. Space to show you that this is real. Dinners that turn into conversations that turn into something neither of us expected. I am asking for the chance to choose you, every day, until you believe that I mean it. Janice thought about her mother's words. About being brave enough to risk not having to survive again. About the difference between protecting yourself and imprisoning yourself. She thought about Margot, asleep in the next room, who deserved to see what it looked like when two people fought for each other instead of against. She thought about herself. The woman she had become. Strong enough to walk away if this failed. Strong enough to try even though it might. Okay, she said. Okay. We take it slow. Glacially slow. One dinner at a time. One conversation at a time. And if at any point I feel like you are falling back into old patterns, I walk away. No second chances after the second chance. Understood. You do not get to live here. You do not get to assume anything. Every step forward has to be earned. Understood. And Kevin. She squeezed his hand. If you hurt either of us again, I will not just walk away. I will disappear so completely that you will spend the rest of your life wondering if we were ever real. Do you understand me? I understand. And I am never going to give you a reason to do that. We will see. And somehow, impossibly, they were trying again. Not starting over. You cannot start over when there is a child between you, when there are years of history and hurt. But moving forward. Into something neither of them had expected but both of them had been hoping for. The next year was not a fairy tale. They had fights. Real ones. About boundaries and expectations and the ghost of Helen that still haunted Janice sometimes. About Kevin's work demanding too much time. About Janice's walls going up whenever she felt vulnerable. But they also had breakthroughs. Moments of connection that felt earned rather than given. Dinners that lasted for hours because neither of them wanted to stop talking. Watching Margot grow and knowing they were building something together. Kevin proposed on Margot's 3rd birthday. He did not do it publicly. He did not make a grand gesture that would force Janice to say yes or embarrass herself. He waited until the party was over and the guests had left and Margot was asleep. Then he sat down beside her on the couch and pulled out a ring that was nothing like the enormous diamond he had given Helen. It was her grandmother's ring. The one Gloria had worn for 40 years. The one Janice had assumed was lost when her grandfather died. How did you get this? She asked, staring at it. I asked your mother. 6 months ago. I told her I wanted to marry you, but only if you were ready. She gave me this and said if I ever broke your heart again, she would make sure they never found my body. Janice laughed through sudden tears. That sounds like her. I am not asking you to say yes tonight. I am not asking you to say yes ever. I am just asking you to consider it. When you are ready. If you are ever ready. I will wait as long as it takes. Janice looked at the ring. At the man holding it. At everything they had survived and everything they had built. She thought about the woman she had been 3 years ago, walking into a law office with a newborn and a broken heart. She thought about everything that woman had lost. Everything she had gained. She thought about second chances. Real ones. Earned ones. Yes, she said. Kevin's face transformed. Yes. Not because I trust you completely. I am not sure I will ever trust anyone completely again. But because you have shown me, for 3 years, that you can be the man I needed you to be. And I am brave enough now to see what happens when I let you in. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I love you, he said. I love you too. Still. Again. I am not sure which. Does it matter? No. She leaned into him, letting herself be held for the first time in years without armor. I do not think it does. They got married 6 months later. Another small ceremony. Margot as the flower girl, which mostly meant she threw petals at people with aggressive enthusiasm. Gloria giving a toast that was equal parts blessing and threat. Friends and family who had watched them fall apart and fight their way back together. Kevin cried again. Janice cried too, though she would deny it later. And when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Margot yelled yay so loud that everyone laughed. It was not the ending Janice had imagined for herself. It was better. Real. Built on truth instead of illusion. They had earned it. Both of them. Through years of work and pain and choosing differently. The story did not end there. Real stories never truly end. There were more challenges ahead. More fights and fears and moments when old wounds reopened. But they faced them together. Not because it was easy. Because they had both learned that the things worth having are never easy. And that is the truth of this story. Second chances are not given. They are earned. Through consistency. Through showing up. Through choosing differently, every single day, until the new choice becomes who you are. Maybe you are Janice, still rebuilding from something that nearly destroyed you. Maybe you are Kevin, trying to prove you have changed when your own history argues against you. Whoever you are, this story is for you. Because your story is not over. Not until you decide it is. If this story moved you, hit subscribe right now. We are building a community here. People who believe in hard truths and honest stories. People who know that survival is possible and transformation is real. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that broken things can be rebuilt. That mistakes do not have to be permanent. That love, real love, is worth the risk. Drop a comment below telling me your story. Have you ever given someone a second chance? Did they earn it? I read every single comment and your voice matters in this conversation. This has been Mr. Dawson Stories. Until next time, remember this. The past shapes us but it does not define us. Change is possible when we choose it every day. And the most important story you will ever tell is the one you are still writing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing. And thank you for being part of this community. Now go out there and write the ending you deserve.